Hi, my name is Goldman. I'm the director and founder of Goldman & Associates. Our firm has a primary focus on family law issues here in Michigan. And today we're going to continue our video series designed to educate and inform the public, so please subscribe to our channel. How does custody work while the divorce is going on? Now that is a question that a lot of people ask. It's well understood by the public that ultimately once the court makes a decision about custody, that sets forth sort of a blueprint of how the family dynamic will go until the child reaches the age of majority, until it becomes an adult. But what a lot of people don't understand is, what do we do in the interim? The divorce could take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. What goes on custody-wise in the middle? Now, if parents are both living together anyway, so I guess the court could enter an interim order giving them both custody, or not enter an order at all, and they just maintain the status quo. The child is living in the house, parents are still living in the house. It really isn't that necessary to say, okay, we're all living together, but we're going to give you the title of custodial parent, and we're going to give you the other title. It doesn't make sense to do it. Kids are there, you're there, he's there. What's the difference? But a lot of divorces are typified by a departure of one of the parents, leaving one person in the home, perhaps with children, perhaps without, and another one departing. Well, in that situation, what do we do about custody? One could argue that both parties are permitted to stay in the house during the divorce. So if you depart, it's really on you. And if you give up the custody because you depart to a one-bedroom apartment when there's 3 children, so you haven't made provisions for that, one could say, well, there's your relinquishment of your custody right there. The problem is that sometimes we have to get into why someone departed. Now let's think about that. Why would someone depart and take on, let's say, a new apartment, more rent, more expense, more utilities, food, all the consumption, everything, a whole nother set of expenses when the law allows everybody to live under the same roof during the divorce? Why pick up another 6 months, 8 months, 12 months of a second household? The answer may be that the domestic situation is so volatile that somebody feels they have to leave. They have to leave to preserve the domestic tranquility. They have to leave because they're under the constant threat. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call the police. In a scenario like that, a person may feel that if I'm there, I'm vulnerable. Anytime she gets upset, anytime he gets ticked off about something, the cops could be called. And all of a sudden, I could be accused of shoving someone or pushing someone and end up in jail. They want to do that, so they pick up and leave. It's a very reasonable approach. The question is, what do you do with your kids? If you feel, for example, that the other side is abusive, leaving your kids in a known abusive environment may well hurt you in the long run when we talk about custody. That is to say, the court is going to ask you, if you felt that the other person was so physically abusive, how could you leave the kids there? And if your answer is, well, I never saw them abuse the kids before, so I figured they're safe, the answer is going to be, well, oftentimes abuse does not occur in front of other people. It occurs behind closed doors. How could you expose your kids to that? How could you do that? So these may be tough questions to answer, so you don't necessarily want to do that. On the other hand, the court may feel that the movement away from the kids and away from your ex was a good thing to preserve the peace, but we'll look to see, did you continue to maintain the relationship? Did you continue to maintain sort of a close tie with your kids? Because remember, while the divorce is going on, the court might not enter a custody order or might enter just an interim order. But at the end of the day, the court is going to want to see, what are we going to do for the future? Even if I enter an interim custody order that says both have custody, or one has custody and one has parenting time, it doesn't necessarily mean the court will continue that order as a final order. So if the court's going to look at it again and decide what's the final order going to be, you need to make sure that you've created a situation where the court can consider you as a custodial parent even though you had to depart, which means the court has to understand why you did it. Why did you leave? Why was it necessary? What were you trying to avoid? And how did you maintain the relationship with your kids, all the while sleeping elsewhere? So these are important questions. Now, if you have any questions about your particular situation, reach out and we'll be glad to help you out.